Healthy, connected, licensed. Immediately pulled a license. And that's because this mobile client just did a full enhanced auto discovery, located another steelhead, that's the server-side steelhead, and built an inner channel, consumed a license from the Steelhead mobile controller, and now we have a Steelhead mobile client that is optimizing, in this case for this CIFS connection to 130. We'll go ahead and type in the credentials, and now we have our U drive, or excuse me, our O drive. No problem. Now, remember, we created a pass-through rule to the 135 server. Before we look at that 135, let's look at our optimized connection. Notice we have this connection to the 130 server, that's its host name, the 445, and it's optimized. If I right-click on that connection and show details, we see our source and destination, our outer channel information, and our inner channel, 10.130.35. That's our data center or server-side steelhead, port 7800. WAN visibility is correct addressing, and yes, you can change that in the Steelhead mobile client to be full transparency or otherwise. We see reduction statistics. Once again, we see the parallel in this being the reports networking current connections version of the reporting in the Steelhead mobile client. Let's move on from here and look at our data center steelhead. Real quick here, this is our server-side steelhead. Let me maximize this window, and let's refresh this page. And we have that one connection that's optimized, and this is the perspective from the server-side steelhead. This again is in our data center. If we expand this, we see it's the Steelhead mobile client that is in fact the client. This would normally show the IP address of or host name of an actual branch steelhead. This shows you that the Steelhead mobile client truly shows up as a client-side steelhead. In fact, where else do we see client-side steelheads in a server-side steelhead? Reports, optimization, peers. And sure enough, we see our Steelhead mobile client host name, the host IP address, the actual Steelhead model, which is Steelhead mobile, and some other licensing and version information. This truly is, as far as this data center steelhead is concerned, a client-side steelhead connected to him as a server-side steelhead. Notice we do have the option here to hide Steelhead mobile peers. That might be a good idea. If you have lots and lots of mobile clients and you just want to see actual steelheads, this lets you hide them, just temporarily. Now, let's get back to our Steelhead mobile client and that in-path rule to pass through certain traffic. Let's map another drive. This time it'll be the U drive to 10.1.30.135 to the unoptimized share. And we'll press enter. And it does feel a little slower, that's for sure. Waiting for it. There we go. Type in the credentials. This definitely feels unoptimized. This is a baseline test for your users and what they used to feel before the mobile client. Do we have our U drive? Sure do. Let's take a look at our Steelhead mobile client. Here we have that same server, but this connection with the source port of 57902, if we right-click on that and show details, we can see that it is pass-through reason a rule, just like we see in a client-side steelhead with an in-path rule to pass through. It's an in-path rule. Now, one thing to point out, there are no pairing rules in the Steelhead mobile client. Why? It can only be a client-side steelhead. Only server-side steelheads need to have pairing rules. Let's take a look at our server-side steelhead now. Server-side steelhead, let's go to Reports, Networking Current Connections, and we should see two connections now. Sure enough, one's optimized and one's passed through, and it's an intentional pass-through. There's our CIFS to 135. Why is it passed through? SYN on WAN. It's exactly what we wanted to see. This Steelhead mobile client, backing up here, when we opened up that mapped drive to the U drive, to the 135, when we mapped that, an initial SYN was sent out immediately by this CIFS UI, the CIFS, well, specifically the NTOS kernel process. An initial SYN was sent out to that destination server. The SYN was intercepted by the, quote, LAN interface, looking up the stack, and we checked our in-path rules, which is, wrap it up, that acceleration policy file, which has all of those intercept rules in it. It found a rule that said pass through. Remember, that rule came down from the policy in our mobile controller right here, the initial pass through policy with that pass through in path rule. It passed it through and didn't put a probe on it. So the SYN traversed the WAN. And if we look at our design here, the SYN traversed our WAN from this PC and hit the data center steelhead WAN interface without a probe. So that data center steelhead did exactly what it's supposed to do when it gets a SYN on WAN, passes it through with that exact reason. This server got the SYN, SYN-ACK back, it went to the client, our steelhead mobile client, passed it through. He's already passed it through because of that in-path rule, and we've had a final ACK back, and our three-way handshake was completed with no optimization. We only needed one license. We're only going to need one license for the entire duration. Regardless of the number of outbound TCP connections on this mobile client, we only need one live license. That said, in our data center steelhead, or more specifically the server-side steelhead, if I have 1, 5, 15 TCP connections being optimized in the data center, I will be consuming 1, 5, or 15 TCP connections on our data center or server-side steelhead. Those license information can be the licensing information can be found in reports, networking current connections, as well as that connection history. And to determine how many licenses your server-side steelhead has, you can go to Configure Maintenance Licenses, right there. Wrapping up, the Steelhead mobile client does perform optimization just like a client-side steelhead. We see the server-side steelhead in the data center. The end user didn't have to interact with the mobile client at all in order to connect and get a license, to optimize, to pass through. The mobile client and the server-side steelhead work beautifully with each other with in-path rules, and as well as that, peering rules. And we have optimization and licensing all done automatically. Thanks for watching.